there, thanks for joining me today. My name's Jo and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator based in the UK. Today we're going to be making this card here using the Meadow dies. We did Meadow dies a week or two ago using very pretty subtle sort of colours, and I wanted to use them to form a silhouette. I thought they loaned themselves to do that. So I'm going to show you how to make it now. Okay, so let's get started. So this is our slimline card that we're going to be using today. So this is in basic black, and this one measures 20 centimetres by 21 centimetres, and it's scored at 10 just to give us a nice slim card. You're then going to need a piece of basic white, and this is just a centimetre smaller than our card front. So this measures 9 centimetres by 20 centimetres. So if you want to do it inside as well, because this is black, then you'll need the same size for in there. Okay, so we're going to start off with, also what you need to do, of course, I nearly forgot, is to cut yourself some silhouette images from the Meadow dies. Now these are all just really beautiful. I just love all of them really. I have sort of cut quite a few different ones, and just to sort of have a play around, we'll see what what comes up when we actually get to put it together. I have cut a couple of these because these were useful for gap filling, because we can cut these off here. So just a couple of those, and then just a mixture really. So they're just in black as well. So the first thing we need to do is to create our background here. Now I'm going to use a mixture today of rollers. So these are our foam brayers. I'm also going to be using a blending brush, and I'm also at some point going to be using just a normal sponge. So I'm using sort of all of our sort of blending tools really, apart from the daubers. You can use anything you have, or a mixture of whatever you feel comfortable using. I just found these worked really well for this project. Okay, so try not to contaminate my rollers here. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with the base section of the card front here, and this is going to be done in Pau Papaya. Now I want to go up sort of just below sort of halfway really. So I'm going to lay down the colour. So when you're inking your roller, what you need to be aware of is the coverage on your roller, because if you roll it backwards and forwards like this, you're only actually inking a couple of inches of your roller. So to ink your rollers, you need to just keep rolling it until you've got a nice coverage, and then we're going to start on the bottom. I'm doing it straight onto my desk here just because I find that's easiest. I can quickly give it a wipe when I'm done. So I'm going to start sort of off my page here, and then just start rolling on. You don't need to worry too much about this colour because it's very pale to start with, so you're not going to get any really awful sort of lines or anything. I tend to hold my rollers sort of here because I can get a little bit more sort of grip on them really. And I'm just going to work backwards and forwards just for a little bit. Now when you're using a normal brayer, you do need to be a little bit more precise, but these foam rollers are absolutely brilliant because they tend not to leave too much lines or too many lines on it. So I'm going to be working in both directions, and I'm just building up this colour slowly. We can always come back and add some more colour if we want to, so don't feel you've got to get it all down all at once. We'll do a little bit of blending anyway, so just do what you feel you want to do to start with. Okay, so I'm quite happy, and I think I'm going to leave that there for now. As I say, I'll probably come back and do a little bit of blending. The second colour I'm using is Bermuda Bay. Now you do need to be a little bit more careful of this one, because obviously this is a darker colour, so it's going to spread that much easier. So I'm just going to again just ink my roller. I'm going to start off the desk And then I'm just going to bring it in. I'm not putting much pressure on it at this stage because I want this colour to build up really slowly. And I'm just overlapping onto the Pearl Papaya there, and we'll blend those properly in a little while. Now this time I'm going up, so I'm leaving sort of a couple of inches at the top, which is going to be where our dark colour is going to be. And again, just bringing it in from different angles. Some of this will be hidden, remember, so don't worry too much. It's better to build this up slowly, and then once you're happy that your colours are going down quite nicely, then you can start putting a little bit more pressure on your roller and you can start spreading that colour around. Don't worry if you get little lines and things like that on it at this stage. As I say, a lot of it's going to be hidden, but you'll find the more you blend, the better it becomes. So don't panic if you think, oh, that's not working, that's not quite doing what I want it to do. Just keep going. You add in some colour and you'll see it deepens as you go. And we do want this fairly deep because we want all our background to be showing on here. Now I'm just going to go a little bit darker towards the top section here, just because this is going to blend into my Night of Navy in a moment. Okay, so I'm just now going to lightly try and blend these two in the bottom here, and we'll come back with the Pearl Papaya in a minute just to try and add some more onto that. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that. So now what I want to do is to bring in my Night of Navy. And so this is very dark, so obviously you do need to be a little bit careful of this, but we do actually want it quite dark at the top, so don't panic too much. I'm going to start off the page, come in, just to blend with that Bermuda Bay. Now they're not natural bed mates, these two, because they're different tones, but we're going to get them to blend really nicely as we go. So I'm putting quite a lot of pressure on this time just to build that colour up a bit quicker. If you haven't got the strength in your hands, then you can just do it a little bit slower, just to build it up. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that first layer. I'm going to add some more on in a second, but I'll be using a sponge. So what I want to do now quickly is just wipe my desk just to get rid of that excess ink, because I don't want to be transferring that when I'm using the lighter colours. So note I went from light to dark so that I can build it up as I go. Okay, so I'm going to come back in now with my Bermuda Bay, and I just want to try and blend these two together a little bit better here. As I say, so much of this is going to be covered, so really don't worry too much. We're not trying to get a perfect blend. We just want to just try and blend them together just that little bit more. I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. And again, just going to wipe that desk just to get rid of the worst. And then I'm going to come in once more just with the Pearl Papaya, just for a little a little blend where they meet. So you can see the colour just builds up. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that. I don't think I need to go any darker at all with that. So again, just a quick wipe. That's the worst bit over, apart from the black, which we're now going to do. So next thing we want to do is to add some black to our bottom and top, and then we'll probably come in with a little bit of Night of Navy again at the top here. So I'm just using Memento, but this time I'm going to be using my blending brush. So again, I'm just picking up that ink, and I want to work it in from the desk. Now you do have to be a little bit careful with this, because this is obviously black. We want to build it up slowly, which is why I'm using the blending brush, because it tends to be that little bit softer, so you don't get so many sort of harsh lines or anything like that. And I want to build this up. I want it to be reasonably dark down this bottom section. Okay, so I'm quite happy that that's sufficient there. Again, I'm just going to use the ink that's on my desk, and I want to do the top section as well. Just pick up as much as you can. Okay, and then finally I'm just going to bring in another bit of Night of Navy. This time I'm using a sponge, and I just want to really darken down that very top. I'm not worried if I'm bringing in any more of this black, because I want it nice and dark. Okay, so that is all our blending done. So it's actually quite quick. It doesn't take too long to do. It's just obviously cleaning up as you go just means that you get a nice clean finish. Okay, so there's various things we want to do on the background, but the first thing we want to do is to create our splatters. So our splatters today are a little bit different to what we normally would do, because we always try and get them quite light and subtle. Today we want them to be quite bold, so we're doing exactly the same as we would do for the subtle ones. It's just the way we flick the actual ink is going to be slightly different. So I've just mixed up a bit of our Whisper White ink, which you've seen me use numerous times before, with just a little bit of water. So there's nothing more than water, and I want it sort of reasonably gloopy, but I don't want it to be soaking wet. Okay, and normally what I would do is I'd tap over my finger, but what we want to do is literally to do like flicking so that we get some nice big blobs in there. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that. So what I need to do is to let that dry. Now, as you've seen before, this does take a little while to dry, this chalk paint. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of a helping hand with the heat gun, and then I'll leave it to one side to dry off for a little while. Okay, so I can tell that that still isn't completely dry on there. I've obviously used the heat gun just to try and help it on its way. So we're just going to need to be a little bit careful, excuse my inky fingers. And as we put it together, I'll just try not to smudge anything. Okay, so I wanted to create like a little border at the bottom, but I wanted my flowers or my silhouettes to be underneath this border. Now, because I'm going to be positioning my silhouettes at different levels which may overlap, this is never going to sit flat. So this is taken from the beautiful new papers, the Elegance Suite, which are absolutely gorgeous, you can see here, and it's actually just the back of a piece of this one here. So I've just cut a tiny little strip, which I'm going to use the black and white side, and I've also cut myself a tiny little strip of just gold foil. I just thought it would be a nice little touch on here, and then we're going to put our greeting further up. So what I want to do is I want to stick these down, but I want to sort of arrange them first so I can see roughly where they're going to go. And I want sort of a mixture of heights. I want to be able to see what they are, that's the other thing, because if you overlap them too much then you can't actually see what they're meant to be. So just bear that in mind when you're popping them on. Okay, and then as I said to you, what I've done is I've cut some extra ones of these because these are quite good for just filling in our little gaps here. So that's why I've cut an extra one, just so we've got some gaps to fill. Okay, so very carefully I'm going to glue my strips onto the bottom here. So I'm going to just use a little bit of Tombow. And obviously I have cut these wider than I need them. I just literally just cut a little strip off. So I'm going to stick these quite near the bottom here. And I just want to line up my little crosses best I can. And then I've got this strip of gold, which I'm just going to put underneath. Just try not to press my glue too much. That's it. So I just want a really thin line of glue at the bottom. And I'm going to butt this one up right next to it, so we know it's all nice and level. Okay, so I'm just going to trim those excess pieces off. As I say, just try and be careful. I can see, you know, where it is wet. So I'm going to start off with this one on this side, I think. And I think if I can keep that one safe, then we can use that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this and then I'm going to sort of trim it across here. So what I'm going to do is just trim that now, roughly where I want it, and I'm going to glue it down. I'm not going to put any glue on this section because that was hanging off the edge. I can use that elsewhere. And again, I tend to use like little, rather than try and glue it all over, just use little blobs. These are quite lightweight, so you're not going to need a huge amount. Okay, so I want to make sure that this black, where I've cut it, just lines up to that paper. Okay, so what I think I'm going to do actually is just to trim that off at that point there, and then I can trim these off from the back. Okay, so that's our first one down. Then I think I used one of these next, so I'm not worrying too much about overlapping massively, but I do want there to be different heights, and I do want them to be so that you can see the silhouette. There's no point in too much if you can't see the silhouette of the actual image. Struggling for words today. some late nights. That's my excuse. Okay, so again, I'm just lining that up in that section there. Okay, so as you can see, they're sort of very spaced out at the moment. So this is where we're going to come in, and we're just going to use some of our other pieces just to fill those gaps a little bit, and just so that it looks sort of more like an arrangement. So I'm just going to snip this off here. Now these ones obviously are going to overlap, so you know, that can't be avoided, but we want some in the foreground, some in the background. Okay, so that's our little sort of silhouette arrangement, which I'm quite happy with. I think that looks quite nice. What we're going to do now is to allow that just to dry a little section whilst I do our little gold piece down here. I'll show you how I've done that. That'll give that an opportunity to dry a little bit more, and we can then do our greeting onto it. Okay, so I'm going to pop that to one side. So the next thing I want to do is to create my gold medallion. Okay, so this is our just silicone mat. I've put 2 on there just to protect my work surface because this is sticky, so I didn't want it to lift. But 1 is sufficient for normal surfaces. Just take the normal precautions that you would if you're using something with heat. So I've just punched a circle from the, I think I've used a 3/4 inch circle, but any kind of circle that you've got from any dies or anything like that, or indeed any shape. It's not going to stay a circle anyway, so it's just a start really. It's something for my embossing powder to grip to. So you probably can't see it, but there is like a little circle of Versamark on there. So I'm going to take some gold embossing powder, and I'm just going to use one of our palette knives here and just tap some onto that circle. And what I'm going to do is just going to flatten it out to cover that circle the best I can. As I say, it's just to give it something to grip to, because we don't want to blow all our powder away. There will be an element of blowing away. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat this on a low heat to start with from quite a distance, and that will start to see it melt. Once it's started to melt, then I can move a bit closer. Between each heat setting, I'm going to sprinkle on some more powder until we have our design. Okay, so I've got my little love stamp here, which I'm just going to put Versamark onto, just to give it a little bit of a barrier against the hot, what will be really molten gold. Okay, so I'm going to heat this slowly. And then as I can see it beginning to melt, I'm just moving that little bit closer. And then when I'm happy it's starting to melt properly, I'm going to turn up the heat and speed. Okay, so now what I want to do is just to add a little bit more powder. Now you want to do this as quick as you can, because whilst it's still hot, it will take the powder and it will automatically begin to melt. So do try and do this as quick as you can. I'm going to do this about 3 to 4 times, just so I can get a nice covering. Okay, so I'm quickly now going to take my stamp and I'm just going to pop it into my circle. So can you see it's just imprinted that love into there. I don't want it to be too deep. I want it to be just so it's sort of there. Don't leave the stamp in too long, otherwise you'll find that it will pull the gold away. So I'm just going to wipe down my surface where I blew some of the powder. Try to remember to move the heat gun away between heatings, which I failed to do at one point in that, so just bear that in mind. Okay, so I'm going to allow that just to dry for a second, just to cool down, because remember it will be very hot. I'll just remove some of these excess bits. I don't want it to be perfect, I want it to be quite rugged. Okay. And then when it's dry, you'll find that it will start to peel, or when it's cooled, I should say. So what you get is this nice sort of rugged edge to it. Okay, now any excess that's left on here, we'll just scrape away, and then you can just get rid of those excess pieces. Or sometimes it's fun to try and reheat them, because if you reheat them sometimes you get sort of little molten bubbles, which are quite fun, but it doesn't always work, so it's a try it and see type thing. Okay, so let's have a look at how dry I am. I can still see it's a little bit damp in places, so very carefully I'm going to take my Dust Buddy and I'm just going to go over the top, and hopefully that will dry any excess areas. I then have a large makeup brush which I'm just going to sort of sweep over the top. So hopefully now everything will be completely touch dry and will be good to go. So what I want to do is to stamp my greeting. So this is going to be in white embossing powder this time, so it's going to stand out from that background. So I'm using my Versamark, and as I say, I'm using that lovely image, that Friendships Refresh the Soul, which I'm going to stamp up here. I want it to be reasonably bold, so I want it in the darker areas, and I'm actually just going to stand up for this so that I can see exactly where I'm stamping, because I want to avoid some of those larger white dots as well. Okay, so I'm just going to add my white embossing powder this time. I'm not too worried if I get any little excess parts on this, because we've got that white speckled background, so it's all sort of going to mix in a little bit anyway. But I will just give it a quick tap, and then I'm just going to heat it through. Okay, so we're getting there, we're nearly there now. So the next thing I'm going to do, now that that is dry and I'm happy that it's sort of, I can handle it quite safely, I'm just going to glue this to my card front here, and then we'll add the other sections on in a moment. Still being just a little bit careful, just in case we have got any little excess parts. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to add some twine. I'm just using our little glue dots for this. And I want to add this sort of around here. That's better. I was thinking I was sticking it on the back of a bow for some reason. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just give this a little curl. Just let it find its own way, because these are on these rolls. They tend to have a little bit of a mind of their own, as you can see. So just kind of let it find its own way. I'm not too worried sort of where it's going to be. I just want it to be stuck here. There we go. I'm going to grab my scissors. And then I'm just going to add a dimensional to the back of my little gold piece. Don't we so much on our desks, don't we? Okay, if you find, like here, I'm finding these are sticking up just a little bit, I'm going to add the tiniest little dot of glue just to the edge. So I'm going to squeeze a little bit onto my tweezers and just tap it onto my thread. And then you should find, with a little bit of perseverance, that will stick down. I don't want it to be stuck down solid, I just want those to lay a little bit flatter. Sometimes you have to sort of do it 2 or 3 times. Not too worried about that little one, because I think that will go down naturally. But I will just add a little bit to it. There we go. And the last thing I'm going to do is just to add some of our little new gems to the card. So I'm going to use a mixture today. I'm going to use a part of our Junal gems, which are from the Hand Penned Petals suite. So I'm going to use these little ones here. And I'm also using the Silver and Clear Epoxy Essentials, which come with the Elegance suite, which is what we used earlier for our little paper strip here. And I'm just going to add a few of these just randomly around, just to add another little level of interest to our background. I'm going to add 4 of those. This is a really good opportunity as well if you have a little blob or something you need to cover. And then I'm going to use some of these clear teardrops. I love these because they just look like it's sort of falling from the sky almost. Has like a sort of glass-like effect. Or a bit of dew on one of our pieces. Equally have a mind of their own. Because they're not round, you can't grip them properly with your tweezers. There we go. So I think that's done. I'm just going to give it a little dust over again, just to get rid of any excess dust that we've got anywhere. And I can see down here, this little piece isn't quite stuck. Better. That's better, there we go. So there you go. So that's a slightly different take on the Meadow dies. I thought it would be quite nice to do a silhouette sort of theme with them, because they sort of loan themselves to that sort of nightimey sort of effect. I hope you like that today, and I will see you next week for another Monday Mashup. Take care. Bye.